What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for lineups.com. And let's talk some Survivor here in week number 8. Congratulations to you for still being around. Still have an interest in these videos means you are in your Survivor pool still, and that is awesome. Another pretty calm week as far as eliminations go. Probably not too many fall off in your pool that you're in. Only a handful in the big Circa contest this week. Here's an article over at Lineups from Noops. If you have not gone in and read his stuff on Survivor, definitely take a look at that, where he's going to break down some stuff that you can use in your decision here this week. If you haven't done so already, guys, everything we do absolutely free. Hit that subscribe button down below. Do appreciate the support. Let us know who you are playing in Survivor this week there in the comments section. So here is our games this week. Nobody's going to play the Thursday night game. You can see, okay, Eagles 7.5 point favorites against the Giants, though that could be heading to 7. 7.5 are the Falcons over the Dolphins. We've got Cincinnati as 6.5 point favorites over the Jets. You've got the Patriots as full touchdown favorites over the Browns. You have the Bills as 7.5 point favorites over the Panthers, though the Bills are on the road. They are coming off of a bye. 6.5 Ravens over the Bears. I'll go ahead and just flag this one right now as one that, as we record this on Thursday, there is not a confirmation that Lamar Jackson is going to start for this game for the Ravens. So, I mean, I'm going to go under the assumption that I'm only going to give you guys information for stuff that I know so that nothing can get misinterpreted. And so the Ravens off the table for me. A couple beat writers came out and said that it is not 100% certainty that he's going to go this week. And so no chance for me there on that team. Colts 14 point favorites over the Titans, and the Chiefs as 12.5 point favorites over the Commanders. So we'll come back over here. I'll go to Noops' little chart here, and as you can see, popularity data, Pool Genius, providing the information. You can see the Colts very highly likely to be your number one pick this week. As we said, they are massive 14 point favorites over here against the Titans. If you are in Circa, if you are in any sort of other pool, it does not matter if they use holiday weeks. It doesn't matter anything. The Colts are your slam dunk play this week. There are a couple different reasons why. One of which is because even though they're likely to be the chalk, the high likelihood that the majority of the pool doesn't have them left is in play here. So, for example, over in Circa, only 39% of the remaining pool has the Colts, which means 70% of the people in the pool don't even have the option to play the Colts. They're going to have to play somebody else this week. And so, even though you know it's going to be chalk, three quarters of the pool basically is going to have to make a tougher click than you this week. And further, if you look at future value with this Colts team, at Pittsburgh next week, you're not going to play it there. Atlanta's a neutral site game. Week 11 is a bye. Week 12's at Kansas City. They don't play, again, if you're in Circa, they don't play on the holiday weeks. They don't play on Thanksgiving. Week 13 is Houston. Now, I understand Houston does not look great, but that defense is really good. And then on top of the defense being good, maybe they figure something out by then. I mean, look, we're still talking a month and a half from now. So, Houston was favored to win the division. It wasn't like they were thought to be a doormat. At Jacksonville in 14, at Seattle in 15, San Francisco in 16. You get my point. Like, this is the time to use the Colts. So if you have them, fire them, move on with your life. They're playing the worst team in the NFL, and they get them at home. Now, the second most popular team is where things are going to get a little dicey, because it depends on how you got through last week. If you got through last week using Kansas City, then if you don't have Kansas City left, which would be the second most obvious choice, by the way, Marcus Mariota going to start for Washington, so there's not going to be any Jaden Daniels in this one. You could fire Kansas City, feel good about it, move on. If you didn't use them last week, and if you're in Circa, if you didn't use them last week, that means you're holding them. So they're not an option for you this week either. So it's probably going to be a lot of people looking at Atlanta. And, the interesting thing for me is I started with 10 entries over in Circa. This is Pool Genius where you can track your entries. And you can see that the 3 that I have left, fairly similar to these 2. I'm sharing this entry with the guy that I do some content with over on VSiN. And so this one's a little bit different than these 2. But you'll notice, oh, dude, you've got the Falcons left and like you've got the Bills left and all that. Yeah, I do. You want to know why? Because if you look, I lost half of my entries on the Falcons and the other one's on the Bills. So that is the reason why I have those teams available. And unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to play those teams here in week number 8. Cincinnati is another option for people out there. I don't know if they switch to if the Jets switch to Tyrod Taylor, I know they're bad, but I think it's an upgrade and a lot of injury situation for me to talk about right now. So I can't really get into all of it because we don't know if Garrett Wilson's going to play. Is it going to be, who's going to be under center? All this stuff is obviously a major factor. So tough for us to do that, but this is not my favorite one. And again, as you see, I use them in week number 1 for 2 of the 3 entries. So really not an entry, not an option for me there in that one. Now, New England, I think is a very solid choice this week. If you are one of the people that didn't use New England to get to this point in the contest. So plenty of options this week. It all just comes down to strategy and which teams you value holding on to. Like I said, you can play the Chiefs and feel good about it, but like you're going to feel good about clicking on the Chiefs almost every single week moving forward. So if you can avoid it, I wouldn't play the Chiefs. Well, now you look at this Patriot squad who at the beginning of the year, maybe you weren't as excited about. And now you look out here and you go, week number 11 at home against the Jets. Week number 13 at home against the Giants. If you had to, in a pinch, the Jets in week 17, the Dolphins in week 18. Like this New England team all of a sudden has a decent amount of future value. Now you got to make it deeper in the contest, but we need to play for today. We need to play for a couple of weeks from now. And then we also need to play the long game as well. And New England, all of a sudden, with the way that they're playing and the way that Drake May is playing, has a decent amount of future value. If you have been listening to my content, you understand where I stand on the Eagles. I'm saving this team, but that's because of holiday weeks. If you're in a traditional pool, they are definitely an option. That said, it is a divisional game. It is Jackson Dart playing pretty well for a rookie. On the flip side of that, you could also say, okay, it's a Giants team that just gave up one of the worst losses in the NFL that we have seen in quite some time, giving up 33 points to the Broncos in the fourth quarter. Now they go back on the road again, back-to-back roadies in Philadelphia, tough place to play. And where do they go from here? How do you recover from a loss like that? But like with some of these other teams, Philadelphia, you get Chicago on, if you're playing in Circa, you get the Bears on Thanksgiving, probably a game, or Black Friday, probably a game that everybody is targeting. So again, that's why I'm holding on to the Eagles, probably why a lot of people are holding on to the Eagles. But you also have a home game against the Raiders in week 15, which is a huge target as well for this team. So if for whatever reason you're in a pool that doesn't play on holiday weeks, you also get a home game against Vegas in week 15. You get Washington in 18. Like I said, Chicago on Thanksgiving if you wanted to play that week, which would be week 13 if you weren't playing holiday week games. So multiple spots to use Philadelphia moving forward, and they're actually rounding into form. So they it seems like they could only get better. That Vegas game out in week 15, Vegas is going to be a shell of what they are now because they're going to sell off at the trade deadline here in 2 weeks. So what is already one of the worst teams in the NFL is going to be even worse. So pretty straightforward for me this week. If you have the Colts, that is your slam dunk pick this week. Don't get cute. Move on. A lot of people have already used them to get to this point. So even though it is likely to be the most popular choice, the option to even use them is not going to be there for well over half the pool that you're in, if not 3/4 of the pool that you're in. So they're the play this week is the Colts. If you want to use the Chiefs, fine. But if you didn't use them yet, that means you're probably saving them. I would probably stay the course there in that one. Again, kind of a wild card to be able to have them. The only other team we didn't talk about this week is the Bills here against the Panthers. Bills coming out of a bye. The question becomes, are you willing to take them on the road against a Panthers team that has been at least a little bit better than we thought? Problem is, injury situation here that we can't really talk about. Bryce Young, whether he's going to go or not. It could be an Andy Dalton game. And I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse about playing against the Panthers. For me, it would make me feel better. I think that Bryce Young at this point has become a solid enough NFL quarterback. He's definitely no worse than Andy Dalton and might be a little bit better. He at least has mobility. Andy Dalton does not. So for me, because of where I sit here, like one of these two entries, and if you're wondering, I made the decision to split entries until I got halfway through the season before I started shoving. So that's why I'm in the position I'm in right now. When I say that I'm going to go with these two teams, because I have to diversify these two entries. This entry again is shared with a buddy, so we'll figure that out. Pretty sure we're leaning towards the Falcons there in that one. But in these two, I'm going to play the Falcons in one. I'm going to play the Bills in the other. And I know the hilarious part about it is the Falcons and the Bills are the two teams that eliminated the other 7 entries of mine over in Circus Survivor. So I'm sitting with 3. I'm only sitting with 3 right now because I lost 7 on the 2 teams that I'm probably playing this week. But the Bills out of a bye, as healthy as they've been all season. I understand the Panthers have been a fine little story, but if Bryce Young plays, he's going to be playing at least somewhat compromised. And if not, it's going to be Andy Dalton. The defense still leaves a ton to be desired. I know the Bills you could say the same thing about, but Josh Allen and company just have a superior team and should be able to win that game. So I'm going to be on them there in that one. And then the Falcons. I feel okay with the Falcons at home against the Dolphins, who everybody thought was going to fire their coach and didn't, who has a bunch of players who have quit on the team, who lost control of the locker room, wondering whether they should bench Tua Tagovailoa or not. I think this is the interesting play if you don't have the Colts available. A good one to go ahead and get the go ahead and get the Falcons out of the way, because unlike all these other teams, the Falcons don't have another click that you feel great about. They are at home against Carolina in week 11, but again, Carolina's feisty, right? So, and probably would have Bryce Young back by then and all that stuff. Jalen Coker will have been with the team for a month. Like, there's all kinds of stuff where maybe I'm not looking to pick on Carolina at that point. So this is the point where you use Atlanta, because you're not going to use them again. Probably not going to click them if you don't. If for whatever reason you have used all of those teams, I would prefer New England over Cincinnati. I know Cincinnati is going to be a popular play this week because a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the lowly Jets. And I know Flacco looks good last week. He's still a 40-year-old quarterback in the NFL. You know, weird stuff for me, weird vibes for this game. So I would avoid that one. I lean way, way, way more towards the Patriots here against the Browns. If you look over here, Noop's power rated his moves this week. He's going Colts, Chiefs, Bills, Patriots. You can go in and read why he likes those teams this week and which way he would go with all of that. Of course, that is for free over at Lineups. But, guys, Colts if you got them, Falcons if you don't. And if you don't have either one of those teams, I like the Patriots. I think that that's the way that you go here this week. That would be my power-rated teams, would be the Colts, the Falcons, and then the Patriots. I'm holding on to the Chiefs. I'm holding on to the Eagles. I'm forced to play the Bills over in Circa because I've used all these other teams that I'm talking about. But if I could avoid playing the Bills on the road until I see it with my own eyes that this team is really good, I would do that as well. Guys, everything we do absolutely free here on the channel, so appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Let us know in the comment section how you are going to go about playing Survivor this week. A little bit trickier of a week if you don't have Indy and you're not willing to part with Kansas City. A little bit of a tougher click. So good luck on all of your Survivor picks.